This video is going to show you solo Grandmaster Nightfall getting platinum rank on a hunter for Scarlet Keep whilst using a unique setup. So we're using a RAIDEN FLUX ARCSTAFF setup. So that's not Gathering Storm, that's Arcstaff, the Roman Super. I've used this in the past. The videos have done really well when I have ran this setup, because it's something that you don't see, and this super has some unique capabilities that other Roman supers don't possess. It's the only Roman super that sort of possesses the same sort of staggered capabilities on VIP targets and stuff like this. So I'm just running through this intro section. Right, just want to get to the champ really. You don't need to take out every single ad, obviously. Score isn't a factor, obviously. It's just you need to clear out all champs, which you will do. This champ can be bypassed. Sometimes if you run too quick, the champ won't spawn. But on a hunter, I'm not as fast as I am on a titan, so this champ is going to spawn anyways. We're using weapon-wise Exotic Bow Wishender because it's fantastic for champions. It's infinite ammo. You can one-shot shields. It's one-shot on GM ads. And also we're using Empty Vessel, which is a solo GL. It's got blinding grenades on with auto and holster. So that's going to be good for blinding targets, and it's going to be decent if I can actually get solar shield break here. That's why we've got it on, just so that we can get a shield break on these wizards, because there's lots of wizards to deal with. And then Stormchaser is doing insane damage on this. I would highly recommend Stormchaser in this. Almost feels like an exotic in this particular GM just because of the acute burn, and it's absolutely melting stuff. At longer distances you're going to find it less effective, but that medium to short range, and you're hitting all your crits as well, it's going to be melting. So when you come to this area here, just be careful because I nearly actually got killed there of the boomer. When you get to this section, you need to decide which barrier you're going to deal with. Now, if you'd been a bit more patient than what I had, you might have had your super before those barriers had spawned in. What you can do is actually kill two barriers, even though they're spread out in this middle platform, both barriers with one super. Obviously with the exotic chestplate RAIDEN FLUX, you must have that on. But I didn't quite have the super energy because I rushed a little bit to the start. So what I'm going to do instead is kill obviously the remaining barrier on the middle platform, and then all these snipers on the left hand side. There's some acolytes still left behind me. I'm pretty weak, so I'm just going to get a blind down. Whenever pressured like that, always think about getting your blind. That's what this playstyle revolves around. I don't think Witherhoard's the play in this one. I have seen people use it. It's probably the play if you run a Night Stalker and you're doing a legit run at the boss fight where you're not using any exploit zones or anything. Witherhoard's the play there, yeah, but I'm getting fed up of using Witherhoard. I didn't think I would ever say that, but this season's been heavy spam of Witherhoard, and you know that Witherhoard's probably my top 3 weapons of all time in D2 at least. So I really love the weapon, but it's a little too strong, just with weak and clear, and it puts you as a disadvantage as a player on not exploring other loadouts. And then you become crutch on Witherhoard, and then when Nightfall releases, I don't think we're going to be using Witherhoard like we are now, and it's going to put you at a disadvantage when the meta shifts and you're not skilled at that meta. Just because there's a new meta doesn't mean to say that you're going to be good at that meta. You need to have mastered the weapon type that it will be, and the roles. Have you got said roles? We don't know what the meta is going to be yet, 100%. So don't just keep spamming the stronger stuff. Have your fun with it, but put that down and then start using some other stuff. That's the best advice I can give. That is the worst factor for players who stick to just one style of play, is that they can never adapt to what's changing. And this game has changed massively over the years, like, because that's what it's designed to do. That's what they want it. That's what their goal is, isn't it? To constantly shift the meta. So this Arc Knight, we'll get a blind on him. We can just literally cycle between our bow and our GL, just take out the booming out. I can't understate how dangerous or lethal the Arc Knights are. That includes champions, of course, because they're just the same as a knight in terms of the damage they deal. You know, they do the same style of attack, so I can't understand how powerful they are. So it's a case of you need to have decent movement. Now in this run, I'll be honest, my movement wasn't tippy top because I haven't been playing much Destiny recently. Especially when it gets to GM season, I'm literally just doing my GMs and then waiting for next season. That's all I'm doing. I'm not really playing the game, so you'll notice that if you start to stop playing as much as you were, you'll start to sort of lose a little bit of skill, and then you'll gain it back when you start playing a lot more. Plus, I was playing with a new controller because I got the new PlayStation 5 controller with paddles, so I'm having to learn to play with paddles again. I used to play with paddles years ago, but then PS5 you couldn't have any paddle controllers. Well, you couldn't use PS4 paddle controllers anyways. Because Destiny 2 was then considered a PS5 game when Beyond Light came out, so that was a bit of a sham. So I've been without paddles for 2 years, so now I'm back to paddles, and I've got to learn with that. So it's a learning process of getting back to where I was, because I was actually better when I was playing with paddles as opposed to the last 2 years when I haven't. For those who know what I'm on about with that, with the new PS5 out controller. So we'll dink the final orb. We obviously used a Roman Super there, the Arcstaff, just to melt. So what's happening there is the Super, because it's doing so much damage, it has this stagger inflict damage that stops the barrier from putting a shield up. There's two things happening actually. Number one, you're doing that much damage that you're actually stunning. If you watch it in slow-mo, you'll see the barrier just get shunned and stunned, so that there's no shield going up. But another thing is that the barrier is actually trying to melee me, because adds in this game, when you're within a certain radius, certain enemy types, they just want to melee you. They don't want to do their primary goal is to put a shield up when they get to that lower HP. So when you're closer, if you're within 2 meter radius, the barrier is actually, you're going to get more time before the barrier puts a shield up. That's why Lament's so good, you see, because Lament's got that barrier capability, but it's also within a 2 meter radius of you killing the champ. Therefore, the barrier isn't going to shield right away. On higher difficulties, that will be negated a little bit, and the barrier will still override this little mechanic I'm on about anyways. But it seems to be exceptionally well with Arcstaff, the Roman Super. It's literally the best Roman Super in the game for what I'm talking about right here, and people aren't using it because they're crutching on Gavin Storm. Use Gavin Storm. Why? Because it's safe, right? But you don't have to always use Gavin Storm, you know. There is other options for you out there. You just need to have a little bit of a determination to try them. Just because it's not within the active conversation on Reddit or YouTube doesn't mean that it's not useful. It is a very useful super. If there was 3 barriers stacked back to back in the same localized zone, I could kill them all 3 barriers. No barrier rounds needed with this super. The super would last long enough, it would output enough damage to actually kill 3 back to back. So, you know, something like on Warden or nothing. But the thing is, there's generally never 3 barriers back to back in a same zone. It's only ever 2. But you can kill 2 back to back as well, which you'll see that. Well, I think I end up showcasing it. Maybe I don't. I can't remember. We'll see later on in the run, because there is times where there's double barriers later on. So this little section, this is where my loadout's a little bit not as good as I want, because I've got to get a shield break with this GL from this distance, and it's a little annoying for that to happen. Whereas with the previous run that I used on the build, sorry, I used Xenophage, which was a little bit more responsive for just breaking a shield instantly from range, whereas this GL isn't doing that job as well. But what this GL is offering is that I'm allowed to use Wishender, as opposed to, because I'm obviously not using Xenophage, I'm allowed to use Wishender, which one-shots all adds and is better than any other bow, basically. right? And it's that it's one shot and shields, and generating heavy ammo because it's an exotic primary, and that is a buff. That is a bonus to use an exotic primary. You get more heavy. So you'll notice in this run, I'm getting plenty of heavy. I did use Lucent Finisher, but having looked to the run, I probably didn't need to use Lucent Finisher because you seem to get plenty of ammo, especially when you're using aggressive frame linears. For whatever reason, you just seem to get more bricks than what you would if you used a precision frame linear, even though I have said with the precision frame linears they are better in certain scenarios as opposed to the aggressive frame, because the aggressive frame are poor at range. I'm on about like 40-meter range, whereas like a linear fuse, a precision one, has got that more accuracy. You're gonna hit all your crits with the. You're not gonna hit all your crits with the aggressive frame like this at a super long distance. But medium range you are, it's very easy to do so. So here's like a little thing here. If a wizard falls off map and you get no score points for that wizard, that means that wizard is about to teleport on you. Now I had actually, look at that. So the wizard's teleported back on the map. That doesn't always happen. It depends. If a champ falls off map, check you get kill credit. If you don't, then that champ will respawn. Generally that doesn't happen. It's more a wizard thing for some reason. But that actually nearly caught me off guard, because what I was wanting to do, see that barrier? He's just fell off map. So that's just happened. What I was on about. If a barrier falls off map and you don't get kill credit, then you're not going to get platinum rank. But as long as you've tagged that champ, you should get kill credit. 9 times out of 10 you should. But there has been times I've saw where a champion just respawns or teleports behind you. So you need to be extra careful when you knock some enemy type off like that and you don't get kill credit. So the kill credit isn't, I'm on about the score that comes in the middle of your screen, is useful for when you want to run and gun kill ads. So you want to throw a grenade to your left and then start shooting right. You can actually check to see if those acolytes are killed without looking at them, because you've got the kill credit. So is it 2 acolytes? No, I only got 1. Alright, so there's 1 acolyte still up. So that you can get this constant feedback information from the kill credit count in the middle of your screen. Use it. It's not just there for points. It's there to confirm if a kill's been done or not, if you're not looking at that ad. So with the plate section, it's the same thing as what I said for the Titan run, is that you want to capture middle plate first and then go with left or right. Reason for that is because the barrier, well, there's a barrier linked to each plate, but the thing is, the snipers associated with middle plate, right? They all spawn in right away. So you want to get the snipers out of the way. So I actually would recommend use a bit of heavy. Use a grenade if you want. I wouldn't save a grenade for the Thrall, but it doesn't really matter either way. The key is to get all those acolytes down. I think there's 4, because they're gonna melt you, obviously, with being on Grandmaster. 2 snipes will kill, even at tier 10 Resil. So it can be a quick death, that. So I would just be cautious before you deal with the barrier. There's still an acolyte up. I'm not sure if I think he is a sniper, so we'll take him out. Now I can deal with barriers. So now what you can do is use the stairs for defense against the barrier, because the barrier is just going to shoot the floor in front of you. Even though the barrier's got a line of sight, just means that it's very easy to take out the barrier. I use the stairs on left and right as well, you'll see. Nearly got a super. Unfortunately, I was wanting one, but I haven't quite got it. I could have farmed super off the champ, but instead I just opted just to blind, then jolt with the storm grenade, and then just take out with Wishender. Once you step on plate, you'll get 4 acolytes, 2 left, 2 right, with a barrier. Goal is to take out the 4 acolytes first, because even though it's only 4 acolytes, they melt you if they're hitting you in the back. That's the last thing that you want. So deal with those first, isolate those enemies away from the champ, then the champ's safe. Go to where the stairs are. This is what I'm on about. It's the same thing as when you're head glitching in PvP. It's the same thing. So you're sort of doing that. The barrier's trying to shoot you, but just shoots the... I think it's because the barrier's trying to get a direct hit on you, and you're on a lower floor than the champ. So that boomer shot is just going straight into the ground in front of you as opposed to hitting you, because they are generally accurate. Another thing as well, if you haven't got any cover and you're fighting a boomer, then you need to fight them in air. You need to be having a constant use your aerial, jump up and stuff like that, because that way the shot can't bounce off. You can't get any splash damage is what I'm saying, unless it's a direct hit on you. So you're better off in the air. And you'll be able to break shields still if you have to in air, because it's one shot with Wishender, providing you got your draw right. So that's if there's no cover, but 9 times out of 10 there is cover against these champs. Sometimes they can wander a little bit and be annoying, but these champs in here aren't too difficult, because you've got plenty of cover, providing you take out all the ads. We're on the final play, same again, 4 acolytes, but what we're going to do here is, instead, I've got a super, so I may as well use it. The combination, the highest damage that you can get, that's not stacking a debuff, by the way, I haven't got weak and clear on, but the highest damage token for Raiden Flux is to obviously have it on Arcstaff, and then what you do is pop super, dodge, so you get a dodge first, then it's light, heavy. If you do, so for PlayStation users, R1, R2. PC, light, heavy, and then Xbox, you know, same thing, light, heavy. And that is the highest, because he's going to do that a palm attack, and that's the way all your damage comes in. It does massive stagger damage and damage to the ads. What I would like in this game, because I've thought about this quite often, there's a lot of myths in this game, and we don't know the particulars about stagger damage against ads. Can we have stagger bars on enemies? I mean, how long has enemies had stagger bars in video games? Years. I remember playing them as a kid. Enemies would have stagger bars. Why doesn't the game indicate anyway to show you how staggered an enemy is? And then maybe introduce something like if you fill a bar on an enemy who's staggered, maybe a VIP, you get more damage. You know, something like that. So they should include some sort of stagger mechanic in the game. I know there is a stagger mechanic, but it's woven in the game where we can't really see what's going on with it and what's exactly happening. What I want is for them to actually show you in game with some sort of bar, progress bar, to show you exactly what's happening with stagger. And then give some weapons more stagger damage than others, and then you incorporate a bit more utility out of unused weapons. Say maybe shotguns have the most stagger damage, so they're high risk, high reward. There's a whole new thing they could do, but I feel as though that would come down in like a D3, which we desperately need. We desperately need a new game, because this game's absolutely, this minute, it's struggling to sort of work. I'm looking forward to Nightfall, and Nightfall's going to be good, and there's no doubt. I have zero doubts that it's not going to be good, but it's the months after that, isn't it? What's it going to be like after that? So these Thrall are going to push. I'm trying to take out some of the snipers. I didn't have a nade. Usually I would have a nade to throw at the acolytes, because they're snipers. So I wanted to take them out, but I was too slow at getting them all. The champion actually doesn't spawn instantly, the first one, which I'm going to actually use this to my advantage. Generally, the barrier, if you're not quick enough, the barrier is going to back to where the streaker is, which can be a pain, because you've got to take out all the snipers and then wait to take out the barrier and all that stuff. For this way, you don't need to. So I've actually pushed the barrier, used this nice bit of cover here. I've spammed Stormchaser, it's fine because it's got good ammo economy. I'm going to have more opportunities to get ammo anyways. So yeah, sometimes I'll melt a champ down, sometimes I won't. It depends on what I'm doing with that champ. Am I going to try and Lucent Finish the champ? If so, I'll use a combination of Storm Grenade, GL plus Wishender spam, sort of do it like that. If it's going for finisher kill, or maybe use one Stormchaser shot to get him weak, then go for finish. Or if it just melt, it's literally get one shield break and then just all Stormchaser. And you need to know which champs to melt and which ones not to. Like this one right here is an awkward one because he's on that bridge. There's not a lot of cover. This champ is a melt. I'm not looking to get ammo off this champ. Even if I really need it, I'm not looking to do it. Because there's safer champs to get later on. And like I said, Boomer Knights are they're more dangerous the less cover that you have around you. If you have no cover, they're dangerous. If you have cover and you can manipulate them, they're fine. They are the most threatening thing in here. They two-shot you. They two-shot you at -25. They one-shot at -40, which a keen-eyed viewer of mine pointed that out to me because I'd mentioned that -40s and -25 GMs are very similar. And yeah, in some respects they're not always the same. But for the most part, there's not enough differences between the two for me to differentiate a category between the two to say, well, this is Ultra GM, this is Standard GM. They're not different enough, and that was the point. Wasn't the point. There's going to be differences right across the GMs. Like Glassware might be a little different at -40. Either Minotaur's one-shot or two-shot. And that's the difference. That's where it boils down to. So, I still think, as I say, the -40, -25 thing, yeah, it's going to be add a little extra difficulty, but if you know what you're doing, you're still doing it. If you're well accustomed to it, you're still doing it. So, to me, it still doesn't matter. I may do some -40s as the season goes on. It's near the end of the week now, so there's not much point of me putting too much effort into Scarlet Keep now, because I'm going to be looking at the next week's GM. Yeah? Which I can't remember. Birthplace? So it'll be Birthplace of the Val. I'll focus that for the next reset, and then the week after that, whatever that is. I'm just going to go along with the weekly featured Nightfalls because people don't have access to the node. The GM selector node. Some people don't have it. I know people that do. Most people do, but there's some people that don't. So I just follow the weekly featured. It also spreads out the content as well. Now this champ, there's tons of cover. So I'm just going to slowly take down the champ and get him finishable to get my heavy, because I've got 11 shots. That's roughly nearly 50%, just over. So I need some ammo, because you're going up this tower, there's lots of champs to take out. Unfortunately there I picked up one of those bricks. If you get any bricks, loose bricks that stick on the that are on the elevator, don't pick them up if you can help it, because when you get to the boss fight, the ammo will be at the boss fight, so you can extend ammo that way. Now, I know you can cheese this by using an emote, but honestly, I didn't have time to look up the angle and what's the angle to get in inside of the pillar with your emote, so I didn't do it. But you can do it. I've just done it the way I've been doing it, is by going in these hidey holes and just doing this. But yeah, if you want a chair emote, the ads will all de-aggro, and you can do that. Just when I was doing this run, I was I didn't have all day. I had an hour or two, but I didn't have all day to be doing runs. So I just, rather than look it up, I couldn't be bothered. I just literally done the way I've been doing it, where you go in the hidey hole thing. Though this floor has double barriers and obviously one solo wizard. When you come, there's not a lot of. Both sides of the room are gonna shoot you, the acolytes, the initial ads. So you need to take out a couple of them, because you don't want to get shot in the back. How these barriers work on left and right, once there's a percentage of acolytes killed, right, nearly all of them, the barrier wants to hug the wizard. So what I suggest is, as soon as that barrier wants to back up to the wizard, deal with him quick. Use your Stormchaser. I was actually going to use Super to take out double barriers, but what I end up doing is using a Super to take out a barrier and a solo wizard. So I've still dealt with two VIP targets. That's what I'm looking at. I'm not looking at them as champs anymore, because I don't even need a barrier shield. Like, look at this. So dodge, light, heavy, massive damage. I would like to see actually what this Super would do on -40 in terms of damage. Something I could do at a later time. I probably can't now, because I've lost CP for Scarlet Keep. Well, when Tuesday comes, I'll have left it, but it makes no odds to me, because I'm not playing now till after Tuesday reset after this video. So I'll have lost CP for Scarlet Keep, so I guess I'll have a look at that maybe on another GM. We'll see. So I'm looking to see which holes in the wall are open. You need to be on the opposite side of that, behind a red pillar. Now we're going to get a blind first. I'm not doing the cheese per se. Well, I am kind of, but it's a little bit harder than actually the cherry emote, in my opinion. because there is actually room for error. The snipers can get you and stuff like that. So yeah, these sections, you just be careful of the void snipers, and just play those red pillars as best as possible. So this is the floor before the final boss. There's an unstoppable ogre and 2 solar wizards this time. So you can see the need. There is quite a need for a solar weapon in your loadout, in my opinion. Like on the Titan, because the grenade build was so good, I went with Xenophage, because Xenophage was more of like a support style weapon, and the storm grenades were doing most of my damage anyways. Whereas with this run, my grenade is nowhere near as good as on Titan. Storm grenades are, I don't know, maybe I'm gonna go with pulse. Like, I do know what pulses are like, and pulse grenades are really good. But I was just going with storm grenades because they're a slightly quicker cooldown. And I thought I could maybe spam more storm grenades. It didn't work out as good as I thought it was gonna. So maybe in hindsight, next time, maybe run pulse instead. There are different arc grenade builds. There's Lucky Raspberry and there's Shinobu's Vow. Shinobu's Vow, whilst good, skip grenades are terrible. I've actually ran a Shinobu's Vow run on this and it was really bad. It wasn't as good as I wanted it to be. They don't do enough damage. They jolt a lot of targets, but they don't do enough damage. What I was surprised by was Lucky Raspberry. I ran a Lucky Raspberry run before this and it was decent. But I ran it on Gathering Storm, and then after a second thought to myself, I wanted to do a Raiden Flux setup. That was just funner to me, to have a high damage super, as opposed to spamming a couple of arc bolt grenades. Whilst they're good, arc bolt grenades are decent, especially on that build. You keep getting your grenade back, especially if you get all the chains of the arc bolt to hit, you'll get it recharged, definitely. But that ain't good for single target damage. If you just throw it at a boss, you're not getting your arc bolt grenade back. So it's more of an arc clear thing. Whereas this build relies less heavily on grenades and more consistent for your super. Every time you put your super, it'll be the same. You will kill a barrier, you will kill the wizards. And your grenades, it'll be decent behind cover, don't get me wrong. When adds are grouped up, this storm's going to do that instant damage I want it to do. So it's decent still. Now I'm getting low on my special. I'm not happy about this, so I'm going to use a bit of Stormchaser. So are you noticing what the wizard's doing while the wizard is blind? The wizard is actually hiding crit spot, making it a nightmare for me to use this linear on the wizard. So I'm actually having to just intentionally body shot the wizard. So I'm actually losing damage there. But I wasn't bothered about wasting the heavy because I had bricks on the floor to refill back to 19. So, you know, but the key there was about ammo management is if I keep spamming my solar GL there, I'm going to get down to 2 shots, which is no good for when you get into the boss because there are solar wizards, there's unstoppable champs. So my ammo for special isn't good right now, but there's opportunities to get ammo if you take the boss fight in stages, as opposed to melt boss, get all waves of adds at once, and then you're asking for trouble then. So unless you know exactly what you're doing, like on Arc Titan, it'd actually be better because well, not the way how I played it. I played it step by step, but if you intentionally melt the boss, you'll actually get all the adds together, which is kind of decent on Arc Titan, because then your Storm Grade's going to do more work for the adds because there'll be more adds grouped up. But then there's a higher risk of death. So there's a risk-reward ratio with that. That's whether you want to do that risk. I'm going to pop a super here because the super's well, actually the super's very useful. I wasn't sure how useful it was until later on. I'm on about boss damage now. It's actually very good boss damage. There's one major con to this super, and have you noticed what it is? It's not good against floating targets. Wizards, they're floating targets. So it has the same issue, not the same issue, but a very similar problem to what Lament has with floating targets. In that which is slightly different, it's that the super's not going to track when you're on the ground and you try and super a wizard with this Arcstaff. It won't track sometimes and stuff like this. So you may be better just jumping up and doing the heavy slam attack. it's a little wonky, but when it does hit, it does huge damage. Massive. So the strategy for the boss fight in general, it's the same as what I used on the Titan. We can simulate that a little bit. We're not going to get as many grenades, but that's fine. We'll be using our weapons. So you need to do this peekaboo style of gameplay where you use your emote, because you get a wider camera angle. You can see what knights and adds are around that corner. You want to use your linear fusion sparingly. That's now going to turn into your arc shielded weapon, because we're not going to get tons of storm grenades. Bear in mind, I am going to use them when I can, but the arc knights will be a problem to you if you don't melt those shields down a little quicker. So that's one drawback to not having an arc bow on, I suppose. But you can't have everything. We've got a solar, you know, weapon on for the wizards, which you do want, really. So the key is not to do too much damage to the boss. I was confident enough. I think I ended up just damaging the boss more. So I ended up getting 2 phases in one, which I'd recommend trying not to do that. But if the ads are hiding and taking their time, it's not a problem just to start doing a bit of boss damage, because you can see the boss at all times generally on this phase. So maybe do a bit of boss damage, and then there'll be another ad wave to spawn in, and you can just take it at your leisure. So this is the second wave. These are melee knights. I've nearly fell off map there, can you believe it? I knew I was going to do that at some point. That's your biggest challenge, is not falling off map. So this zone here manipulates the enemy spawns because they don't want to push you. But when you peek out so far, they do. They're coded to want to push you. It's almost as if you're behind a wall, but you're not. Even unstoppable champs can't get round here properly. So it's not a cheese per se. I mean, people are calling it a cheese. It's an I would consider it not game breaking. It's just a zone where you can stand. But isn't that true for anywhere in the game? Like Glassware, are you saying that left side's a cheese just because right side's harder? No, just because it's more convenient. And that's how I consider this. It's solo. There's not this room isn't big. We're not always on Night Stalker. We're not always on Arc Titan. You know, give other classes a chance. And I think this is probably, might be even intentional that you can stand there. I mean, how long's this strike been in the game? If it was a cheese, they would have patched it already. So it's not a cheese, but it is a zone where you can fight from. And that's how I look at it. Whereas the other cheese where you stood on the roof, that is a cheese. That is a legit cheese that's, yeah, okay, that's not good. And they did patch that out. Now, do you not think they would have patched this as well while they were at it, if they thought that this was wrong? So I don't see it as wrong per se, and I don't, that's why I'm not going to label the video as cheese, you know, because I don't consider it a cheese in the first place. So the ring attack on the boss, because I've had a lot of comments about that on the previous video about how that works. When the boss is non-shielded and active, because if the boss is shielded, the boss will not attack you on a intermission phase like right now. When the boss is active though and does damage, if you're anywhere on the map out like in the middle and stuff, as soon as you engage with the boss will wave hands and do that green attack. As soon as you see that, you need to be prepared already to move. Just sidestep to the right or left or back up, because that'll knock you off the map. I have not seen it this season where the boss does the green attack where I'm sitting at now. I believe because the boss is kind of de-aggroed and just wanting to shoot you on an arc pattern phase, that the boss won't do that. So it seems to be a radius thing, the green ring thing. You'll see it later on when she actually does it, and it's only happening, like I said, previous seasons I have seen her do that though, the green attack where I'm standing, but things change over time and I've not seen it once this season. I'm not saying it's not possible, but it's highly unlikely if you play passive enough like this for it to happen. So we're going to do a super here because we took out the first wizard. It's highly useful to us right now to actually just use a super, because I don't need a super for quite some time. I do want one at the end, but that's ages away. So I may as well use my super, clear out the final solar wizard, which is annoying, yeah. And then the boss is now, damageable. I don't believe there's an add phase right here, so it's just a case of do a little damage with your primary. You don't even need to use heavy. There's no need for you to use Stormchaser on the boss right now, unless you've got a plethora of ammo drops on the floor, which I didn't have. I think I only got like 1 brick the entire boss fight, which I had GL ammo finder on, to be fair, not linear, and it was still more important to put GL ammo finder on because I've got Lucent Finisher on. And the only time when I'm not struggling but starting to deplete on heavy was at the boss fight. But we still have enough to do, you know, to do the job. And we've got Storm Grenade if we need to rely on that for Arc Shield. The ads have come out. It's now Boomerites. You start to get Curse for All as well as the fight progresses. Fortunately, I didn't get my blind there. Oh, we did get blind. We're good. So, Blinding Grenades has 2 things that it does. It doesn't just blind the ads. What it also does is it makes the ads put their hand over their eyes and they walk out of cover. Now, I've said previously that Hive are the worst enemy race for this hide and seek thing, where they hide in cover and they ambush you, sort of thing. So you'll push out, you'll be like, oh, there's no ads here, and then all of a sudden there's 6 acolytes to your right, a Curse for All behind you, and then a Boomerite in front. And at first it looked like there was no ads, but what's been apparent to me this week, they're actually walking out of cover as well. They don't just be blinded behind cover, they walk out of cover. So you could like do blinding grenades round a corner of where the acolytes are, and they'll all walk out for you. And then you can then use a storm grenade and stuff like this. It counters their passive gameplay. So that's another good thing for blinding grenades. I highly recommend it because I have heard people struggling using like Witherhoard, Bow, Linear, and they're still not getting it done. Like I said, you don't have to use Witherhoard in this. I don't think it's the best play. I think blinding grenades better for this particular case because the solo wizards is what's killing people, and they can kill you in that exploit zone if you're not passive enough when you need to be, and then getting your blinds in when you need to and stuff like that. This is ammo run. Now there's no heavy that I can see. There's plenty of special but no heavy. Like there's special everywhere, literally. 1 brick here. That brick's actually enough to do the rest of the fight. So that's good. We'll get the boss immune. At that phase you can actually just run round the boss. Don't go too close because you can get melted by the arc and stuff. So there's a phase right away. This is the champion phase. So remember, the boss is de-aggroed because the boss has got shield up. The boss will not attack you. So your champions are now your focus. But they take time to come here. And there's Curse for All. Now there's a lot of Curse for All, but they only push in 2s and 1s. And the rest will stay back. But when that Curse for All is taken out, the one that's close to you, another one comes. And then another one comes. So it's a case of, yeah, deal with the unstoppable, but just be aware that there's always like this threat of a Curse for All exploding. As soon as you see a curse, strafe right into this corner. As soon as, if you see a Thrall come here as well, the Thrall can push you off map. Like look at that, the Kirsty fell off map. So that can happen, right? So you need to have this, you need to know how to play this location. It isn't just a case of, I know this zone, I'm going to do it now. No, because there's particulars to the zone and how you play it and stuff, and what can go wrong and what can go right, and you need to know all the details. If you don't know all the details, then you're not going to do it, hence why you practice. So the second Unstoppable's pushing now. So we'll get some Stormchaser shots in. Be passive with these Unstoppables, because like I say, they can still kill you here. So that is a thing. I should have used some heavy there, to be honest, to finish off. But as soon as you stop doing damage and you think the ogre's going to kill you or something, just duck and get into that corner. And the actual Unstoppable cannot stomp you from here or anything like that. This was quite lucky. If you saw that, if I'd actually shot that curse there, I might have died because I was too close. So try not to do that as well. Try to just get the shot before they start running at you and stuff. So now it's cleanup time, right? So there's a couple of cursed, there's a couple of acolytes. Good storm grenade here because they're grouped up quite nice. When there's only like 3 cursed, you have to push up, but that's also an opportunity for ammo. But just bear in mind, once you clear that last cursed or the last ad, that shield goes off and the boss does that green ring attack and pushes you off map. So you need to be ready for that. So your first thing shouldn't be try to shoot boss, it should be avoid green ring attack, then shoot. So look, see that? As soon as that green wave thing, you need to move. You cannot do damage. Then after that you can. So we're going to do some Stormchaser shots. I was in 2 minds right now. I was gonna actually pop super there and finish boss off, but I didn't know how much damage it was gonna do and whether I could tank all the stuff. My answer now to you would be that I could have done that, yeah. I could have actually just popped super right there and killed the boss. But I thought 40 minutes and 50 seconds at the chance of having a flashy finish and maybe not doing it, I'll just take a conservative run and then just clear this last wave. May as well. There's 2 Boomer Knights, a couple of Acolytes, and we are going to pop super on the boss. And you'll see, like I said, it does massive damage. If you to do 1 cycle of Raiden Flux damage, it would do more than 1/3 HP to the boss. That's if you hit all your stuff. But again, it's classed as a wizard enemy type. So that sometimes you'll miss your heavy palm attack and stuff like this. I feel as though this is quite relevant this run as well, because we're getting abilities to stun champs. Hey, I've been doing that for ages. I've been doing that last 18 months. And I've said they should do this. Hey, why can't we take down barriers with supers? Well, we're doing it now, look. We've been doing it ages. But yeah, they're finally doing it. The danger with that is, though, might make the game too easy. I don't know. We'll see what happens. It might make it more fun, though. And I think more fun's better than now. Better than not having any fun at all, you know. See how it works out in Nightfall. So we pop super here now. The boss is melting us, but we've got enough damage to deal with. That was a solo GM on Arcstaff. Hope you enjoy. Thank you.